our psyche, into our minds, paralyzing us, taking control of the cerebrum and the limbic system, rendering us as slaves.
I watched Rakka on YouTube, and I didn't realize that Neil Blomkamp was making a whole bunch of these short films and putting them on Netflix. They were available on YouTube, and I only saw Rakka. So that's what I'm going to be reviewing and then going into the others, because a lot of these are sci-fi, horror-oriented, and they have aliens and monsters in them, so you know that's up my alley. Rakka is a 2017 American-Canadian military science fiction short film directed by Neil Blomkamp and produced by his studios, Oats Studios. Apparently the short film has been out since 2017. I only knew about it recently, like a few months ago. That's also how I found out that apparently they put a lot of movies up for rent on Steam, like Steam Powered, the platform that you buy games off of. Who would have known? What's really interesting about this is that it has these reptilian aliens that are not just technologically superior, but also very aggressive, and who can basically control the minds of humans. They're known as the Klum, and they are pushing humanity to the edge of extinction, making them into slaves and using them for their experiments. They are merciless and only see humans as pests. For the humans that are still alive, their life is kind of like hell. Not only are they abused, but the Klum transform the earth so that it can fit more of what they like. They're terraforming the planet or putting structures and gooey stuff all over, burning forests, and all of this so that they can pump out methane, which of course makes it harder for humans and all life on the planet to breathe. As a result of the extreme global warming that they have caused, a lot of the oceans start flooding the areas, and a lot of places become uninhabitable to humans who were previously there, who could probably still survive the conditions. Humans and a lot of other animals, I imagine, had to take to hiding underground to set up coalitions so they could try to fight back. I mean, even if it's a lost cause, you want to at least try to see if you can do something, you know? That whole thing about not going down without a fight. As for the experience, very few humans live through that. And humans can still try to use guns or the weapons they have, but it's nowhere near as technologically advanced as the ones that the Klum have. I don't know what this black goo stuff is, but it seems to look like nanorobots or some kind of weird kaleidoscopic substance that not only they can use to make it a solid, but they can also use it in a way that makes it function as gas and liquid. I don't know what that is, but that in of itself is very interesting. And they've set these things all up around the earth. You can also see it on their bodies. So I don't know if they produce it or it's just something they harvested from their planet to use. They can also directly affect the weather, which is in and of itself very haunting. I find it very ironic as well though, because they look like reptiles, and reptiles can change their body temperature to fit their surroundings or their environment. But these alien reptiles change the environment to fit what they want. They're like upside down reptiles. Now a bunch of people decide to resist, of course, even though they're punished for it later, and try and blow a few of these aliens up by working together. Isn't that the big, what is that? I don't even know. It's a gooey cloud thing that I guess it just chills out with them there. I don't know why it's following them. I'd have to go back and watch it again. But yes, as you can see, this black stuff is all over them, and in a lot of ways, it kind of looks like that alien fungus thing from Splinter. I wonder if they're from the same universe. I mean, not on purpose, of course, but it would be interesting, my whole headcanon thing going on there, if they were from the same universe, because they look very alike. Take a look at this stuff and how it makes these spiky protrusions and how it behaves. And then, look at Splinter.
It's metabolizing. What?
I don't know, dude, but it seems very similar to what these things do. It almost looks as though that black goo organism could be, oh my god. Wow, just making this video now, I'm just thinking about this. Because in Splinter, that thing clearly has some kind of reactionary intelligence, if you want to call it that, where it will find things, put its splinter inside them, and then metabolize whatever it is it comes into contact with. If it's a whole body, it basically takes control of that body. And just like some parasites even on Earth today, it will take control of that body and do the motions very similar to what that body does. It's not really mind control, it's body control. And then you have this organism, or these organisms, that have this stuff all over their bodies that can control the minds of humans. Interesting. I'm gonna get back to that, because I'm going somewhere with that, and it's very exciting. So anyway, the humans fight back, and so do the reptiles, the reptile aliens. But then, something else shows up. Some weird angel-like entity that doesn't look like it's part of the Klum. It's clearly some kind of humanoid, angelic-looking crystalline thing. he sees it, but you don't really see it ever mentioned again. Some of the humans have already made brain barriers. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but it helps to protect them against the mind control of the aliens. First time I saw this woman, I'm like, she really looks like Sigourney Weaver. Then I showed my partner and he's like, that is Sigourney Weaver. I'm like, oh, I didn't expect to see her in a short film, so that's why I was kind of surprised. Anyway, this pyro guy, who's responsible for making a whole bunch of guns and fire technology, is approached by Sigourney Weaver and some of her men, and they want something from him. But in payment, he wants to blow up people for experiments. And all he says is, hey, you have the sick ones, they're not gonna make it anyway, so just give me some of the sick ones. And as Sigourney Weaver says, yeah, maybe in the peacetime that would definitely not be a thing, but truth is, they are using up resources and they're probably gonna die anyway. Sure, you can blow them up because we're doing this for the good of all mankind anyway. It's one of those difficult situations, you know? Then we meet Amir, the person whose name is called the most in this short film.
Amir.
Amir is special because he was experimented on by these things. A lot of people believe that he is one of them, but this girl who lost her daughter, even though she knows it's rare, has a theory that people like him who survive these experiments, it's very rare, are very special. Because they have survived, there must be a reason why they survive. They must have some kind of biological makeup or some kind of mental integrity that keeps them alive throughout all the cruelty that they have to endure under these reptilian aliens. Not just that, but people like Amir have powers just like the reptiles do. They can do things that the reptiles can do. We've seen them mind control, and sometimes it seems they can read the minds of humans. They seem to have a power similar to that of the Force, being able to move things with their mind. It's especially potent when they're in the line of sight of the human or whatever it is they're trying to control. And in that way, they infect the person without even touching them. The girl is basically telling Amir by the end of the short film that, listen, you have a responsibility to help us because you have this power. You're a victim too. They did this to you as well. So you have to help us. We can win, I think, but you need to tell us if we actually win. I don't know, if he tells you whether or not you win, what if he tells you you lose? Are you gonna stop fighting as a result? Is it even gonna be worth fighting if someone tells you that? You know? I'd wanna kinda not know. There's so much freaking slow motion in this short film, and I think they have to do it like that because if everything was just normal speed, the film would be over a lot longer, or a long time ago.
Don't do it, Martinez! Don't do it!
Even with that slow motion, I'm pretty sure Martinez only hit that guy once in the shoulder on the other side of his body where the heart isn't, so why is he laying down dead? What happened there? Like, that's just so weird. Like, you're supposed to be rolling around on the floor in pain, I can imagine, but you just get hit in the shoulder and you just die? It's freaking odd. You know, never seen that before. Anyway, back to the theory I had with the reptiles. Now, remember I said all this black gooey stuff that they use? Look at this stuff. Look how nasty it is. It's black and it moves on its own and they can manipulate stuff with it. It's also all over their body. This black gooey stuff can also kind of change shape and take control of things. It can be a gas, it can be a liquid, it can be a solid. It's very weird. Now, I don't think that this ties in with any other universe in the horror sector of things, but there's one other movie that I did watch recently. You guys can also see a review of that on the channel, called Splinter. And it's funny because that featured an alien life form or substance that had similar properties. Now, unfortunately, I can't show too much of this because YouTube's a bitch, and for some reason, even though you're showing like what's obviously a fantasy zombie, that apparently gets demonetized because I guess it's too triggering. It doesn't make any fucking sense. But anyway, in this scene of Splinter, the main characters are looking at this thing up close, which is not very wise, but this guy is like a science biology major or something like that. I kind of forgot, but he wants to know how this thing functions. And the great way of learning how to defeat something is to find out how it functions.
It's metabolizing. What? I think it's feeding. No, it's absorbing the nutrients on a cellular. It's more like a mold, I think. This is new. Like this, I've never seen anything like this before in my whole life.
What is it?
So as you can see, those spiky protrusions, that black goo, the way it moves, the way it metabolizes, the way it can make itself into a solid or look different in one scene and then it looks different in another scene, and also take control of body parts or whole organisms that are no longer living, looks very similar to what we see in Rakka. Now yes, this very well could be coincidence, but what if, I know, headcanon here, just bear with me, what if there is a possibility that this black goo stuff is kind of the same stuff that we saw in Splinter. This did come to Earth from somewhere. Now, in the movie Splinter, it was said that, well, it wasn't actually said, but it's implied heavily in the beginning of the movie that it was sitting here. It was lying here on Earth, and people dug it up, and then it started infecting. Chances are it originally came from space because we don't have anything else on Earth that does that. Maybe prehistorically this thing evolved to do that, who knows? And then it just got buried in the Earth. But the way that it behaves is similar to mold, but the way it metabolizes and the speed at which it does so and then makes itself like a splinter, I mean, it is a lot more complex than any mold that we have right now. So you can say, maybe it came from space. Maybe it didn't. But the similarities are so uncanny that I think it's a possibility that this thing did come from space. And when it got into contact with these reptilian aliens, you can see that they're wearing it as their clothes and everything. It probably did the same thing. But these reptilian aliens, I think they already had the ability to mind control other organisms. They evolved that way. I don't know why they did. They seem to be based also on cobras, which people say, oh, cobras can hypnotize. So it's probably a play on that with the design of the creature. But let's say these creatures had very strong mental capacity, just like Amir. This thing comes, and instead, just like it has done to many organisms, it's probably not expecting because it doesn't have the mental capacity to expect anything. But what probably happens is there is a mutualistic bond. There are some creatures that we have that are very parasitic to us, but there's a mutual agreement they have with other species. Other species don't mind them. If we were to get in contact with those species or have their parasites, it would probably kill us. But to them, it's fine. It's just like having a best friend on board. Something with the metabolism of this goo, along with the way that these reptiles metabolize in their bodies. They have amber blood, so they probably have completely different body functions. And also coupled with the fact that they have these extreme abilities, maybe they were immune to this fungus or this mold's properties, and they could use it to thrive rather than become its victim. It's also possible that when they got into contact with whatever this black goo stuff is, that they developed those properties and those powers as a result. Maybe they were just ordinary creatures before, and then they came into contact with this goo. And the goo is what gave them the mental fortitude and probably what caused them to advance beyond what was even thought possible in their organizations and societies, if they even had that. This thing could also be a freaking symbiote, just like Venom. Maybe Splinter, the Venom symbiotes, and this thing are all interconnected. I think that for some reason this is so much more interesting than the reptiles themselves. The aliens are cool, I do like their design, but I think that the black goo here that looks like the Splinter fungus from the movie Splinter is the same thing. Just look at how it operates. You can't tell me there's some similarities there. Like, I don't know. In my own movie universe headcanon, I think they're all interconnected. I think they're the same thing in different stages of evolution. Anyways, I thought Rakka was a very interesting short story. And if you guys like aliens and sci-fi, you're gonna enjoy Oats Studios. It basically is like Love, Death, and Robots. They have a whole bunch of other stories there, or short films, that feature sci-fi elements like aliens or some weird stuff happening. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.